say I'm incredibly grateful to be at the Hills. It's a great community and a very good command. I've inherited some really good police who are very keen to work with the community on addressing some of our crime issues. So I'll touch on the elephant in the room. Obviously there's been some really disturbing events over the last week that both the community and police working together have had to deal with. Those events have seen a huge impact, I think. I know on my own police who responded on Monday evening down to Fairfield to the events down there, and also some of them were family liaisons at the incident on Sunday in Bondi. So it has impacted the Hills more than probably is realised. But more broadly for me, our focus has been over the last couple of days is really trying to reach into those communities and try and instil some calm. So with the help of Council and Alex Hawke's office, I've reached out to all of the religious groups across the Hills Shire to make myself available and to try and instil some calm across this community. Likewise, we've been spending a lot of time at shopping centres and public spaces, again engaging with people, trying to instil some calm, because while those events in isolation are tragic, we don't want there to be a sense of a sense of lack of safety or other, because it's really not the case. With that in mind, it's not lost on me the importance of building good relationships with the community. It's events like today that when I get asked to come to, I do try and get to be able to build on those relationships. And I've met with the Mayor, I've been to his office, I've met with a number of the MPs and federal MPs, I've spoken at a number of other events to make myself available to start and really forge good community relationships, because it takes a village to raise the community, in essence, and I understand the absolute importance of working collaboratively on issues. So whether it's in you building confidence in policing to want to report things to us, or whether it's you're the eyes and ears for us to help us in terms of how we respond or disrupt crime, I understand that there is that need for those relationships to be forged. And days like today are certainly important with that. We also go out quite frequently to school events and other events, working with schools that are having problems, all in an effort to try and prevent, disrupt and respond crime. So can I encourage anyone, if you're not on social media, we're talking about technology today, that the Hills Police Area Command runs a bit of an edgy Facebook page. The crime manager who runs it's been in trouble a couple of times because he's a little bit too edgy.
No, he's perfect.
He's perfect, good. But I can say to you that when we're talking about technology, and even this morning in a meeting, we're finding that when we're putting out calls for assistance with missing persons, whether we're trying to identify people who have committed crimes, the success rate through those platforms is incredible. So if you're not on those social media pages and you are socially media savvy, can I ask you to please get on those pages, because you can assist through sharing it through your own platforms to try and help us identify, as I said, whether it's a missing person, and there was some really good community support for a missing person a couple of weeks ago. For me, it's very warming to see so many people want to be invested and actually out looking for our missing people. So when we look at technology, social media is certainly something that we use to address crime in the area. Talking about crime, just to share with you a little bit about some of my priorities. Obviously my priorities have to reflect the priorities of the Commissioner, and the Commissioner's priorities are around connected to the community, so that's something that I'm very passionate about. Connecting our organisation. Silent victims, so we've got sexual assault victims, victims of domestic violence and others. Next generation, so our young people, and organised crime. So the Commissioner has identified those as corporately some of her priorities, and some of those are very necessary here also. So domestic violence and youth crime is certainly, and as I've spoken with the Mayor recently about it, they're two of my priorities. They are things that, with all honesty, keep me up at night. They do worry me about making sure that we are giving really good support to the community on that we're investigating thoroughly, we're taking commensurate and sensible action when those things occur. There's been some great initiatives. The way that I've adjusted, I guess, the structure of my command is very strategic in how we look at those issues, and we're seeing some fantastic results in both the reporting, response investigation of those matters, and I look forward to wherever I can work with the community to report and to assist us in those matters would be very, very helpful. There's so many things I could talk about. I'm probably going to stop there. For me, this morning was more just about introducing myself, making myself available to you should you have any questions, preferably not on technology because I'm not tech savvy. I've got people that do that for me, but on anything to do with policing, I'm certainly happy to take any questions from you today, and look forward to genuinely working with this community and the rest of the Hills Shire over the time that I will be as the Commander at the Hills. So thank you for having me. I'll open up to any questions.
Naomi, I might want to firstly applaud the services of New South Wales Police and the very courageous Inspector Amy Scott on the way she dealt with and handled the situation in Westfield. We're a very peaceful country. But talking of community resilience, that's one example of community resilience and how the police and worked with the community members around there and were able to resolve the issue. But we'd like to acknowledge all the wonderful work you do and thank you for what you do, for keeping us and our families near and dear ones safe. So
thank you. No, look, I really appreciate that. And can I say, thank you. Can I say that, the actions of Amy Scott were commendable. Like she, absolutely outstanding. And you've nailed it. It was police and community working together. The heroes that weren't in uniforms on that day, from what I have seen from my office, not from having anything directly to do with the matter, shows how community comes together in a crisis. And the way that everyone worked together to get a resolution to that situation was impressive. And even on Monday night, when I said multiple police from the Hills responded to Fairfield to support those police in Fairfield who were struggling to contain that situation. One of my sergeants here, Sergeant Barry Barakat, was face of the Daily Telegraph yesterday as someone who was reported as being empathetic and able to use his communication to try and calm that situation. And I've spoken with Barry. I'm incredibly proud of what he has done. Unfortunately, my command sustained 2 very damaged vehicles as a result of that. Wasn't quite as bad as Ride Pack that had 7. So, but it was a challenging situation for police, and I agree there are some great examples of police and community working together to resolve the situation. And
Superintendent Moore, we'd also like to, at the same, in the same note, condone the actions of the certain members of the community who actually attacked the police. There's no need for us to attack police. They're here for our safety. You have an issue, you could be angered about something, whether it's religious, whether it is whatever. You don't need to involve and take out that anger on the police. And I think I absolutely condone that. And on behalf of the India Club and the Community Foundation, and I think most members of the Shire, we condone such actions and don't appreciate them.
Appreciate it, thank you. Any other questions or comments before I do need to leave? I do apologise, I won't be around much longer, but Shuba does have my contacts if anyone needs to reach into me for anything. But please continue to work with us. I want to have your confidence. I want you to want to report things to help us resolve matters, and look forward to working with you into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Naomi, Naomi. Our Hillshire is very lucky to have the best of the best superintendents and commanders in the city. And you are one of them. It was long overdue to have a female commander here. So very, very warm welcome to you. And we are here in whatever way we can support you. We can always be very much.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thanks for having me.
I will say just one more thing. She has expressed herself very well, and it is very obvious that she is going to be very, very accessible.
Thank you.
I would like to, first I would like to make a correction. Mr. Philip Barrett is former Attorney General. And, sorry about that. I would like to invite Mr. Barrett to share a few words with us. Mr. Barrett is a long standing from India. Very warm welcome to you, sir.
And very senior.
What a surprise. I didn't know I was going to come to speak, and I'm lost for words, you can imagine. Can I first share in the acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the land and meet? I acknowledge my mayoral colleague, I acknowledge our member for Riverstone. I'm sorry that I can no longer acknowledge the superintendent, but I was particularly pleased to hear what she had to say. I'm not Dixie. I congratulate the Hills Council on the way in which they have adopted technology. And if somebody wants to prepare a script for me and put it up on the screen, it'll make life much easier. I have to learn how to read it, but
I had it on
probably appreciate it.
I had it on my phone in front of me.
Yeah, it's not my style. It's not my style. I did want to talk to you about the matters raised by Superintendent Moore. Because yesterday I had, I must say, the unfortunate experience of being in Bondi Junction. And I went with mayors from Western Sydney to lay wreaths in memory of those who tragically lost their lives. And I acknowledge that the Mayor of Parramatta brought together the mayors from Hornsby, Georges River, Liverpool. We had the Mayor of Waverley there, and we also had the Deputy Mayor of Blacktown. And it was important to be there to acknowledge, I think, the courageous actions of so many that have been commented on already. In case you wonder why I was particularly moved, my granddaughter was in the streets in Bondi Junction, the corner of Oxford Street and Bronte Road. She'd just been dropped off from a friend from her school and was about to go into the shopping centre when she heard the shoots and saw people running away. So when you know that your grandchildren have had that experience, it makes it even more meaningful. So the speech I'm going to make today reflects something of what I say frequently at citizenship ceremonies. Because Australia is a country that welcomes people from all over the world. I do make the point, having been the longest serving immigration minister in Australia's history, that I probably allowed more people to come on my watch than we have seen at any time, perhaps since then. And for me, I frequently make the point that Australia has more of its population overseas born than all of the countries in the world except two. And I always ask people, can you guess? And they usually say, the United States. Well, they do have greater numbers, but proportionately, significantly less than us. They say Canada. They say New Zealand. Any other guesses? Who are the accountants in the room?
I was going to say Luxembourg and Israel.
You've got it. You've heard me before.
I was going to that.
Luxembourg is the place which is best known for its tax avoidance. And all the accountants go there to help their clients organise their affairs, and they have a larger proportion of their population overseas born in Australia. And the other is Israel, because it's what is called the law of return, which enables Jews to return to that state. But they're the only two. And I often say, if diversity is a problem, we should have some of the most significant problems you'll find anywhere in the world. But I always add a caveat. I say nothing is perfect. And the events of the last several days demonstrates just that. When I do speak at citizenship ceremonies, I remind people that when they become Australian, they are joining a parliamentary democracy. They will have a say in determining who makes the laws. And the way in which you have your say is by the way in which you exercise your vote. But the law is there for all of us, and it's to protect all of us. And we have an obligation to respect the law. And one of the things that did disappoint me yesterday was not just the actions of a small minority, but of a large number of people who are determined to take the law into their own hands. Our fair showing. I haven't seen anything like that in a very long time. And so I do make the point. In Australia, we say you are required to honour the law, to respect the law, to obey the law. And we are all bound by the same law. I am bound by the same laws that you are bound by. But we do acknowledge that we have people of different faiths, different cultures, different races. And we say that you ought not to forget where you're from. You in fact should be proud of your heritage. And we encourage you to share with others something of those beliefs that you hold, the culture you're from, your racial background. But in doing so, you still have to observe the laws of Australia. The fact that we encourage you to keep it doesn't mean that you have some overriding entitlement over others who are entitled to expect that their views are equally going to be respected. And so I think for an organisation like yours, it's important, as I heard from you, that we continue to encourage all Australians to honour the law, to respect other cultures, to respect other religions. Because if you want yours to be acceptable, you have to accept others. So there's not much more that I can add. These are difficult times, but I thank you for your ongoing support and encouragement. The Kamars have been friends of long standing, and I always delight when I can come along and join you.
Thank you very much, for your words of wisdom. Always very well. One thing I would really like to say delightedly and proudly, you know who started the Harmony Day in Australia?
Yes.
Mr. Brother. Yes. I always remember that. I invite our next guest speaker, Mr. Warren Kirby, MP from Riverstone. We thought it's a good idea. We all know what is happening in our shire, and Peter always keeps us informed really very well. What is happening in our neighbouring shire? That is also a part of connecting, cohesiveness, harmony, and everything. Mr. Warren Kirby, please.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of the insights that I've had as somebody new to politics and also most certainly new to Parliament House of what is happening in the area of Riverstone. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we do stand on the traditional grounds of the Darug people, and I thank them for their custodianship of the land on which we stand. And if there are any Indigenous elders here in the room with us today, I extend my respect to those as well. I grew up in a little town called Schofields. It's a postcode of 2762, and for the purposes of most of this talk, I'll talk about 2762 and 2765, traditionally known as Riverstone, Schofields and districts. When I grew up, Schofields had about 2,500 people in it. By the time I was entering into the workforce, it had reached a staggering 3,500 people. By the 2016 census, it had risen to around about 5,500 people. By the 2021 census, it was almost 16,000 people. And by the 2031 census, that a postcode of 2762 is expected to have around about 150,000 people. That's the rapidity of growth that we're experiencing in Riverstone. And I do have some numbers here that I pulled out. Some of it is census data, and some of it is also projection data from their approvals. And I will be testing everybody at the end of this. So,
All right, well, listen.
accountants,
Better listen.
yeah, pay attention. So Schofield's nominated as a suburb. From the 2021 census, was officially 9,359 people. By the next census, that's expected to be 22,499, and by the census after that, 63,191. Tullawong, which was part of the 2762 postcode many years ago, 17,196 in this most recent census. Next census, 42,584, and then by the following one, 65,321. That is the rate of growth. There are other suburbs around that are expected to experience a similar rate of growth. Riverstone, for example, jumping from 12,000 up to 40,000. And the reason I bore you a little bit with all of these figures is because when you start to break down the people who are moving into the area, things get quite interesting. In the 2021 census, we found out that we were the electorate with the most number of young families. We were the most number of youth in New South Wales. And we were also the most number of Hindus in New South Wales. When asked about ancestry in the 2021 census, there were 18,789 people who identified as Australian, and there were 18,683 who identified as Indian. Then there were 2,694 who identified as Punjabi, 2,626 who identified as other Indian, 1,402 that identified as Sikh, and 1,381 as Tamil. In an electorate where on a regular citizenship ceremony there are between 350 and 400 new residents every month. In an electorate in the 4 months after the previous state election in 2023 was rising at approximately 1,000 new voters per month. It's easy to extrapolate that number of Indian Australians, or those who have identified as coming from India, has outstripped those who identify as coming from Australia. And the reason that I say that is because when you look at the suburbs that are stable, and that's typically everything to the south of the electorate, for those who are familiar, the Ponds, Acacia Gardens, Stanhope Gardens, those populations are relatively stable. There's been very little shift in that. But when you get into the new suburbs, such as Riverstone, Vineyard, Grantham Farm, so the number of people who identify as coming from India in 2021 was 1,096, and in 2016 was 154. Those in Tullawong Rouse Hill who identified, and I won't add in the numbers of other Indian, Punjabi, etc., but there were just short of 2,000 people who identified as Indian extraction in 2021, and there were 126 in 2016. When it comes to Schofields and Narooma Fields, similar result. There are 4,000, so it's close to 5,500 of Indian descent, and in 2016 that number was 492. The numbers in the growth suburbs of Tullawong, Schofields, and Narooma Fields, all of the ones to the northern end of the electorate, are increasing tenfold. And while there is an average of around about 25% of people in the electorate who identify as being from Indian descent, when it comes to some of those new suburbs, it's close to 85-90% in those new suburbs. And that's continuing to grow. And why do I throw out all of these figures? These figures not only show a dramatic shift in the demographics that are going there, but it also has a very significant effect on cultural shift within the area. As I was growing up, so by the time I entered into the workforce, the vast majority of people in the area played rugby league. Suburbs like Box Hill here in the Hills District had around about 200 people in it. Now it's got around about 30,000 people in it. The parks, the underlying planning provisions that have been made for the Northwest Growth Area have a subtle indication of an Anglophile perception of what the community needs. And by that I mean the parks that are being created are designed for soccer and rugby league, not cricket. The community halls that are being planned are for a cap of around about 200 people when the community are coming together in numbers of 500 to 1,000 people. From a planning perspective, we need to have a fairly dramatic rethink about what that means for our community. There's also some social negatives that come with that in an area that is overwhelmingly Anglo, or has traditionally been overwhelmingly Anglo, when instead of the population shifting at 2 or 3% per year, it's increasing tenfold over a period of 5 years. We suddenly have a clash of cultures, and that clash of cultures in many cases is unnecessary. I often say to friends now, back, if I rewind the clock 20 years or so, a new neighbour would come in, you would invite them over for a barbie, have a 6-pack of beer and some sausages. Very difficult to invite your Hindu neighbours over for a 6-pack of beer and some sausages. Just as difficult it is for your Muslim neighbours to do the same thing. And there are many different cultures spread within that. I'm acutely aware of when I mention the word India, it's almost a holistic catchphrase for a nation that is as diverse as saying something like Europe. I come from Europe. So it's incumbent upon our elected leaders to be acutely aware not only of the shifting landscape of those numbers, but what that means in a social context. Something that was touched on by the superintendent, things like domestic violence has increased. And this, I hasten to add, this is not exclusive to the South Asian community. It's been existing in our community for a very, very long time. But I will make the point that we have no laws for dowry abuse. We've, over the last 3 years in the Brisbane electorate, there's been 2 women who have lost their lives to dowry abuse in a domestic violence situation. There are cultural disconnects in terms of the way people drive, in terms of the way people leave cars at the front of their house. There are from major to minor. But there are also some very significant shifts that demonstrate the overwhelming positive impact that the Indian diaspora has on our electorate. During COVID, the electorate of Riverstone had an unemployment rate of around about 8.5%. This is back in 2020, before we saw the most significant uplift in Indian population. Our unemployment rate now sits at 1.6. It is one of the lowest. In fact, it's around about half of every electorate that surrounds me. It's in the top 5 in the state of employment. Connectivity between cultural groups, the willingness of cultural groups to reach out and help, from Swami Narayan to Muslim, whenever there is an area of need in the electorate, they're the first people that are putting their hands up to help. In fact, before the need is even there, I've been approached by multiple organisations from South Asian groups expressing their desire to help. And that's very heartwarming. It's also very necessary, because I'm going to flip back onto some of the social challenges that arrive. We have a robust social welfare system in Australia that is designed to make sure that nobody goes starving, nobody goes with medical needs that they require, that the base things for Australian citizens are catered for. In a community with multi-generational housing, with people who sometimes struggle with English, and a dearth of necessary infrastructure in growth areas combined, leaves a lot of people feeling socially isolated. Most of the support systems that we have are delivered, I should say, in English rather than in Hindi, or rather than in Punjabi, or rather than in Gujarati. Sometimes it is difficult for people in our area to know who to turn to reach out, or even indeed if there are social services that are there to support them, and rely very heavily into community to find that support. Which leads to its own challenges, because in many of the situations where social isolation is occurring, or even worse, where there are instances of domestic violence, the shame of approaching the Sanjhe, the person, the elected leaders in the community, often prohibits that from happening. There are cultural disconnects within my office, for example. I've been petitioned by people for exerting influence on the police. These are things that are not possible for people in my position to do, but there is an expectation of it because of something that they had experienced back in the homeland. So there are challenges, but there are enormous opportunities. Recently, I started up Parliamentary Friends of India. It is well known that there are enormous trade opportunities between India and Australia. This has been known for many, many years now. And go back to Mr. Rowe's days, where the emergence of India as a superpower in its own right, and having visited there earlier this year, I can see the outward focus of people on the street, people standing a little bit taller, their shoulders are a little bit higher, that proud of when India is contributing to the world and what it is due to contribute to the world over the next 20 or 30 years. Australia is extremely well positioned to take advantage of that. We are, there are two countries in the world in which we have a trade agreement, a free trade agreement, I should say, a military agreement, and an annual leaders meeting, and India is one of those. When Gujarat established Gift City late last year, Gujarat opened the door for the world's universities to come attend, and the first two that did were the University of Wollongong and Deakin University, both Australian universities. There are enormous opportunities for collaboration between the two countries. This is well identified. The thing that we have been missing in the equation for a very long time has been input from the diaspora. As somebody who comes from a business background, I'm acutely aware of the way that business ordinarily gets done. While in government there is a hands-off tender process and people give independent quotes, generally speaking, when it comes to business deals, it's done through people that you know. It's done through relationships that are forged. And what better relationships to forge than with people who are living with one foot in each of those countries. And I don't mean that in any way in a derogatory sense. In people who are maintaining businesses in India, who are maintaining businesses in Australia, who are contributing. One of the reasons I have such a low unemployment rate is because while there is a disconnect between some of the degrees that are offered in Indian universities versus what are recognised qualifications in Australia, if people experience that stumbling block, and there are many in my electorate that do, there are many that suffer from what we know as underemployment, which is multiple degrees, but finding that they have to work 2 or 3 jobs in many labor jobs to make ends meet. I recognise recognise that it's deeply ingrained in Indian culture to work first and not consider reaching out to government for support and for ways to prop themselves up. So this propensity to enter into the workforce any way they can has led to wonderful examples of entrepreneurship, and many of those have deep ties back in India, the initial start of that. So when you add together an enormously growing population, you add together a very close national connection, you add that New South Wales government has a sister state agreement with Gujarat and Maharashtra, two of the engine rooms of the Indian economy, and we have a growing diaspora that is looking for opportunities to further take advantage of the connection between their home country and our country. We have an amazing future ahead of us. What we need to do as governments is start working on delivering what the new residents of the area have been promised, typically by their property developers. And this is where I turn down a little bit again into some of the challenges they're facing and some of the social discord that's created by that. So in the incumbent community of Riverstone, which was sitting at around about 15,000 mark, people could move around quite easily. The streets were more or less built for moving horses and cattle up and down, and now we have, instead of a few thousand people using these areas, we have tens of thousands of people. The areas that have been designated for parks in some of the brand new estates are still designated as parks and have existing old buildings on top of them. We have an incumbent community looking at the new community and saying, everybody coming here is causing the dysfunction. And we have the new community coming in who were promised the world and frankly delivered an atlas by some of the property developers who have constructed these buildings, where they would say there's going to be a school here, there's going to be a park here, there's going to be a major road upgrade here. Failing to mention that probably won't happen for another decade when the contributions have finally come through to deliver these. So it causes angst and frustration that needs to be worked with. It creates opportunity for new friendships to be made. But most of all, it creates an opportunity for the northwest of Sydney to really come together and become the overarching powerhouse of not just Greater Sydney but New South Wales. And that is what I'm actively working towards. While Riverstone Electric officially finishes on Windsor Road, I am acutely aware, as I'm quite sure Mary and Jimmy and Mayor Roddick are aware, most people don't pay attention to political lines. Most people worship in different areas. Most people go to live, work and play in different areas. And it is a responsibility of leaders, such as the leaders in this room, to make sure that not only are we focusing on what is happening in our backyard, but we're also paying attention to what's happening all around us, because we are a growing community with similar goals and aspirations. And now that we have finally, as Mayor Roddick eloquently pointed out, we've dropped the tone of assimilation versus integration, and we're now into a phase where we're bringing people together like never before, and I'm very excited to be a part of that. So thank you for inviting me today.
Any questions?
Warren, would you like to answer any questions?
Happy to. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah.
Tell us about your India trip.
Oh, the India trip. Oh, my India trip was wonderful. For those of you who don't know, I worked for 30 years as a commercial photographer before stepping into politics, and so I've had the wonderful opportunity of travelling quite extensively throughout the world. I've been to places like East Timor and had a meal with a lady who lost her husband and 5 sons to indiscriminate Indonesian murder. I've eaten frog soup on the floor of a hut in Cambodia. The food was collected by the kids after school. That was their life. I've also had the privilege of staying in £2,000 a night hotels in London. To stand on a street in Mumbai and look to my right and see the world's most expensive real estate, and look to my left and see the world's largest slum, is somewhat of an experience. And this bleeds through all of society. The trip I started off in Ahmedabad, flew over to Delhi, and then road tripped all the way from Delhi across country through Agra, Orchard, Gwalior, ended up at Varanasi, and explored some of the countryside, explored the disconnect between an astonishing uplift in infrastructure going on between metros and high-speed rail and highways and virtually every aspect that you could think of, to going up to street vendors with QR codes on a little scale, to seeing a fully grown oxen in the back of a rickshaw, to seeing people who live on the side of the road hand to mouth day to day. There is an extraordinary, when you talk about scales of 1 to 10, you're really talking about -5 to 15, 20. The extremes are sort of wide. But I will share with you, I visited Akshanam, and I was lucky enough to have an audience with Swamiji there. And he said, to truly understand India, I want you to think about McDonald's. And I thought that was rather odd, but he said, when you go to McDonald's, your food is presented to you on a rectangular tray. You have your burger in a box, you have your chips that are also in a box, and you have your drink in a container. And most people will start with the burger, or they might mix up the two, but mostly they'll go from one to the other. And we do that in Western society over our meals as well. We have entree, we have main meal, we have desserts, all separated. In India, you'll be served food on a round plate in small portions, with everything from sweet to savoury to spicy to bland and starchy. And you choose your own adventure. And that's deeply ingrained in the Indian side of not being confined into the strict regime of what somebody else wants you to believe, but to truly experience life everywhere, from the meals that are eaten to the houses that are built. That it is very much a land that is innovative, creative, and very much worthy of its place as being the world's next superpower.
Wonderful. Well done.
One question there.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Sanjhe, and I know you're a creative person also, and we visited your studio as well. Is there any support we are doing for creative professionals for their development, because I believe that is the area where all the communities can come together and work together and create more job opportunities or entrepreneurs?
Yep. Short answer is yes. So for the first time in our state's history, we have a whole of government arts policy that is designed to work with the arts community and uplift the opportunities within the arts community. So that's onto the side. Delving a little bit more deeply, when I was in India, I visited with the Producers Guild, the Indian Cinema Producers Guild, to talk about how do we increase the amount of Indian cinema in Australia. And the argument that I used is there's a very good reason that all the Marvel films were shot in Sydney. And it's not because of cheap labour, it's because we have some of the most skilled professionals anywhere in the world. And we also have some extraordinarily talented screenwriters here in Australia. So what we have is technical talent in terms of production and in terms of storytelling. What we lack is funding and audience. Because our cultures are so very similar in so many ways, it's not a very big stretch to say a script written in Australia could very easily be adapted to an Indian audience. where either outright it's targeted towards an Indian audience or it's targeted towards a global audience that happens to be created by an Indian crew. And there was definitely an interest in utilising Australia more for Indian cinema in particular. There are some tax hurdles that need to be overcome by that, which has to be negotiated on a federal level. But there is certainly a desire to do that. And then when you add on to that the diaspora that we have here, not only do we have aspiring actors, we also have a multitude of extras that are available for just that space. And if I go a little bit more broadly, and again, I'll use the Indian diaspora as an example, the amount of cultural and dance groups that are being formed, the amount of overseas artists that are being brought here, not to perform to small community halls, but to be performing to tens of thousands of people. All of these things are opportunities for our two countries to collaborate on and to increase the not only the field of arts in itself, and as you know, as a creative, I'm a huge supporter of promoting the arts in and of itself, but it also opens up so many opportunities for increased tourism, for increased business engagement in a hyper-local sense. If a large overseas artist comes, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars that are injected into any local economy, and that's something, if I go back to the community halls and that concept of just small community halls for population, that's missing the bigger picture. That's missing those opportunities to have a stadium for, a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately it was cancelled, but India-Australia polo match, there are so many, that was up in the Hawkesbury, but in addition to performance, there's sporting collaborations. So why don't we have large stadiums that we can work with, so we can have large-scale sporting adventures with people who live locally, but also use those stadiums for performance.
See, I have experience, like I've been working more than a decade with this, like affordable filmmaking. I've been mentoring upcoming, these novice people. What I've been facing, the problem with that is that on a higher level, like Screen Australia and all the support is there. But affordable filmmaking, like a student coming from a film school or acting school, they've come to me, but they had no way of, doing their own projects, their own content. So if on a small scale, if the local businesses and council can help, in kind and financially as well. So a local talent can be, they can come up and they can make their content. And today is a content market. There's a lot of content required. I've recently actually created the bridge between India and Australia. There's a series which is right now on air. So we have actually collaborated with them, and we just finished first chunk of shoot, and we've done that. So on a small level, or on a community level, or maybe in this like our areas, if you can get help to bring all these talents together, help them to grow and help them to do affordable making. So that's the thing. They don't have funds, they don't have budget, but if they can get some kind of help, support to do that. So I think
you make a very valid point. Many people get bamboozled by major Bollywood productions or Hollywood productions, and they see that as being the film industry. When the reality is the film industry is much, much deeper than that, and there are, for every one major production that is created, 10 or even 100 others that are done below that. And I saw this regularly in my studio in the music space, where lots and lots of artists would come in and do a music video, and there were a number of them that came in on their first time coming in, and they would have their friends on camera, and another mate on lighting, and it was all done super, super cheap. And as their careers progressed and developed, they got signed, and more money came in, and then the grip trucks would be arriving, and then so there are avenues for people to progress through there. And I'm not going to pretend it's an easy pathway through, but I will make the point that I made to my son, who is also a musician, that is often lost on people in the arts. And I mean, the greatest amount of respect is often lost on people who are creative people. I include myself in that. show business are two words, and each one of them is equally important. And if you don't understand the business, there is no show.
Yeah.
As far as those kinds of support, executive, that's the whole point of an executive producer role. Anytime you see an executive producer on a film, what that means is I put in a lot of cash for this, I don't want my name on the screen. So any young filmmakers, you know, I would encourage them to look towards business, look towards philanthropic organisations out in and outside their circle, particularly if their film might resonate with a particular thing, because there are other avenues for collecting revenue, product placement within film, all of those sorts of things have potential to give you a baseline of money. Started with a short film. A friend of mine started with short films, entered those into international awards, won a couple of international awards, and used that to springboard into feature length.
Yeah. So I'm also trying to do that. I've also made some projects like that. So just need to know what kind of support.
Please, the conversation continue over the
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We have plenty of time to remember that. Thank you very much. So our next topic is technology and company. But I would like that if you guys take a 2 minute, quick 2 minute stretching break before I invite Raji to come and give that talk that we ready. Please have a stretch, whatever.
I think this may be a good opportunity for you all to just come along to one side, and we have the distinguished guest who is speaking along with members. We could have a group photo, a couple of photos. Some of you would like to stretch out or have a hot drink, or go to the public conveniences, you're more than welcome to do that. But if we could have a photo of all of you together, it would be wonderful. Yeah, I think we just have everyone here, just on this side, and take it from there. This is good?
Yeah.
For the photo?
Can you take one off my phone?
Nice to meet you. Maybe all done.
Excuse me.
The people who are outside, please come and have a group photo very, very quickly. You don't want to get 6 feet.
Yogesh? Bihari Babu?
Ready, quick,
Arnav?
ready,
Come.
quick. Akshay. Very quick, stop, very quick. Very quick.
Camera there. Akshay. Akshay.
Akshay, I think he's calling you.
Yeah. Give me the camera. I will take the.
Akshay.
People who work so hard deserve to.
Put your arms around your waist.
Look at the camera, please.
You will film in the camera? Yes, in trouble.
Actually, एक मिनट दे रहा है.
Is it on or not?
I also.
You can open it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on. Just touch it a bit. Yeah. On?
Come back next week.
It'll come on. Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
Actually, Zian, can we just get him next to the man?
There's a lot of people.
One more. One more.
Last one, please.
Yes.
For the people, I'm not smiling that time.
Make sure you can smile this time yourself.
Bro, she was not there, that's why. Take it. Megan, could you say few words? Few words. It's live going on. Just say few words.
Hi, I'm Peter Gangemi, the Mayor of the Hillshire Council. I'm here at the India Club event today. We've got a huge pack of people. We couldn't even fit everyone in the photo just there. Mayor Ruddock from Hornsby Council's here. Warren Kirby, the member for Resistance, here. We had Superintendent Naomi Moore here before. We've got a theme of technology here today, but we've had wonderful presentations, great collaboration here. So it's been a wonderful event.
Just now, did you send me a
Yeah, you want to say something? It's live going on. Just.
Should I say something?
Yeah. Just. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tia, and I'm really enjoying being at the India Club event today. I'm looking forward to the speech by everyone. Thank you.
Dominic to give the talk on the technology and enlightenment, what is happening, because I feel we are left behind in the technology. It's changing so fast. Here we are. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. That'd be great. Thank you.
I think we're just waiting on a couple of more people to come back in. I will start with a brief introduction on myself. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rajiv Chaudhary, and for those of you who don't know, I've been a passionate member of the Hills community. I've worked over the last almost 2 decades with various community groups, with members from various walks of life, with politicians, with police, with schools, and most importantly, in business to sustain myself. I was fortunate to be the chairman of the local radio station, where I took over an institution that was pretty old, had old technology, and was financially in the red. And within 12 months, I was able to turn it around into a profit-making organization, even though being a community radio station, and to have our first station manager, and that station manager, it was a youngster who we deployed, who we employed, and we paid him for that job. And today he's a breakfast presenter. And I'm very proud of some of those achievements. Not proud of myself, but the ability for us as a community to get together and to create, with an entrepreneurial mindset, to create a successful story and bring a smile to an individual. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be talking about technology trends in 2024. And it's pretty easy technology is such a vast topic that I could go on talking for hours on it. The horizons of technology start from, one end of the universe and go to even beyond the universe. But I thought I'd just keep it brief, being the last speaker. And before I start talking about it, I'd like to acknowledge the speakers that spoke before me. Megha and Jimmy, that was very, very interesting, those insights about technology deployment. And it's great to see you making a start in the council working with deploying technology. I have fond memories of the new council building that was launched several years ago when we moved from the old building from Showground to the new one in the Northwest Precinct. And the kilometers and kilometers of fiber optic cable that had been laid out and Cat5, Cat6 cables that were laid out to create a monster of, I don't mean monster I mean more in terms of epic size, just a gigantic network, and how many people work through that network. So I am aware of what's happening in the Hillshire. Obviously, Mayor Phil Rudder, technology may not be his best friend, but unfortunately, in today's world, we've got to learn to adapt, adopt, and otherwise we will not be able to survive. It's very, very important to look at that. To the young member Warren Kirby, who comes with a lot of experience, and I've been fortunate to know him also for a fair bit of time. It's so nice to see him so passionate about his people, about his region, Riveston, about New South Wales, and most importantly about Australia. And it's wonderful to see that the first thing he did, realizing, looking at those census figures, was he went across to India to understand what India was all about. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are living in a multicultural society. And one of the biggest problems we face is not technology, but it's cultural sensitization. It's the ability to understand each other's culture, to understand which areas not to go into, and how to adapt and work in a communal, in a harmonious way. Celebrating cultures and customs of each other. Let's get straight into the trends that you need to watch out for. Number one is spatial computing. Number two is generative AI. Number three is specialized computing. Number four is developer experience. Number five is cyber trust and defending reality. And number six is technical wellness. As technology emerges and evolves, it's tempting to call any given day a turning point. It's a familiar cycle. When I was younger, a new bit of technology would come out probably once in 5 years, once in 4 to 5 years, sometimes if I go back into the 70s, once in 7, 8 years. But today, thanks to the world being flat, thanks to social media, thanks to the fact that anyone can go and we can put a Facebook Live here and anyone across the world can see what we're talking about and what we are all about. So it's tempting to call any given day a turning point. It's a familiar cycle. Each breakthrough overshadows the one before it, fueling a perpetual belief that right now we will be remembered as the moment everything changed. But then again, look around us. How can we not marvel at the sheer speed and scale of change that we're seeing? Innovation is multiplying innovation. On a macro level, disruption no longer comes and goes. It persists in a state of flux. And for Australian organizations, this shifting landscape can be equal parts exciting as well as Mayor Ruddock said, overwhelming. Technology strategies will need to be in constant motion to address these 6 trends that I've identified and poised to define 2024. A mix of grounding and elevating forces, each interconnected and evolving. The months and years to come will be a story of inspiring, incredible possibilities and unforeseen challenges. And business leaders will need to balance healthy optimism, steady pragmatism, and an eye for value. Perhaps most importantly, they'll need to stay curious about the unknowns that lie ahead. Let's start with spatial computing. Now, spatial computing is a technology defined by computers blending data from around the world or the world around them in a natural way. Spatial computing is action. Could be as simple as controlling the lights when a person walks. So when you see those sensor lights at work, they work on the technology called spatial computing. Now, if you want to add another paradigm to those lights, you can say, let's say, for example, if it is dark and the light is below a certain number of lux or lumens, then, and there is motion in this room, switch on this light to 100%. If not, keep it at 20%. Now, that's what we're talking about when it comes to councils and small businesses and large businesses and even ourselves at home. Because can you imagine if you consume 20% of the power? Because what happens is when we go back home, we go and switch on all of our lights and lounge in the, because you want it to be nicely lit up and you want to feel positive. But very often you need to realize that you can actually consume 30% or 40% or 50% less power, because one of the biggest challenges of this, the next 10 years is going to be power. There's going to be water and power are two of the things that I feel are reasons why probably wars are going to be fought. And we need to be very careful about how we deploy and how we can use technology to save power. To give you a simple example, a stadium that's lit up. We could go to play a game, we get a code from council, we switch it on, and it comes on for 3 hours. What if we just had a 10-minute or a 15-minute training session, or a half an hour training session? Now, when we leave, there's no option there, there's no smarts in there to say that there is no motion, switch off lights. Okay, or gradually reduce the lights so that if there is motion, someone can go and increase those lights. And the power consumed by a stadium is phenomenal, just to give you an idea. So these are the kind of things. Same way when you talk about street lights, you could have them dimmed, not fully bright, but they become bright as someone walks down that path or a car goes down that path. You may want to ratify depending on the area and qualify what you want, and that's where the smartness comes. So spatial computing is, where physical and digital worlds are colliding, and they're propelled by AI or artificial intelligence, extended reality, and the Internet of Things. Spatial computing empowers businesses to optimize, stimulate, and innovate. As we enter this new era of interconnection, where can Australian businesses find an edge? That's something we all need to think about. We need to think not just from a business perspective. Even if you look at yourselves in your homes today, there's a lot of technology that you can deploy. And technology is here to facilitate us. Yes, it will frustrate us, but that doesn't mean we don't deploy it. You've got to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that's important. Generative AI, that's the second thing I want you to watch out for. Now, generative artificial intelligence is a type of AI that can create new content and ideas, including conversations, stories, images, videos, and music. Some examples of that are definitely Spotify, Google. Google has come out with something really cool in probably recent days, that you can hum a song, click on that, and it'll detect the song and tell you which song it is. So you just have to hum that tune. Similarly, augmented reality or identifying a product. You can scan, you can put on Google Scan and scan something with your camera, and it'll detect what it is and give you information about it. Now, what I find very useful, and this is just my personal example of this, is I'm a very avid gardener. I enjoy looking after my little terrace garden that I have. And I love flowers and I love greens, and I like to create a harmony or a good harmonious blend between all these various plants and flowers. So very often I want to know what's happening to this plant, or the other day, I was wanting to know what herb is this exactly? What's it called in, say, in Indian, or what's it called in English, if it's vice versa. And I was able to very quickly, through an app, scan that, and it told me what it was. And it told me, what are the things to be careful of, what kind of soil you need, what kind of sun or shade you need. If it's a flower, when is it going to flower? When should you pull out the bulbs? So this is the kind of things you can develop apps in generative AI and use them. Another example of generative AI is definitely chatbot or chat GPT that we're told, that's been spoken of very, very quite a lot in boardrooms today with corporates. Let's say, for example, the inquiries that come into an automobile company. Now, I run an IT support company. I choose not to deploy ChatGPT because being an IT company, I strongly believe that I want to keep the human side of the enterprise alive. So I try to focus on the fact that I want within that call, A, it should be answered, and B, the resolution should be provided. So you try to set high standards and you become a boutique company in that way. But let's take large organizations. Let's say a Ford or a Toyota or a Mercedes-Benz or a Holden or any company like that, a Hyundai. If they someone wants to know a little bit about the car, can they get to know that information? Do they really need to go through reception? Do they really need to go through the various levels of getting to the sales manager or the product specialist? It could be pretty frustrating. So that's where generative AI comes in, where it's very easy to answer the most important aspects of, or the most critical aspects of that particular business or that particular operation. Generative AI is also good for, in terms of, in any area, whether you look at it from a medical perspective, you want to identify what have you got, is it psoriasis or is it a skin disease or is it an allergy? You can get that basic information, and today that's a big, big positive because it saves a trip to the GP, it saves a trip, 7 out of 10 problems can be fixed. You don't need to go to your specialist, you don't need to put pressure on that system. So this is yet another example of that. Now the top generative AI examples, just to put in there, is content generation that we spoke about, music creation. So you can actually pick up, if I want to sing, or I've got lyrics of a song and I want it to be on the theme of Michael Jackson, I can actually create music which will sound, with my lyrics, which will sound exactly like Michael Jackson. I could pick up tunes, I could pick up loops, I could even modulate my voice through a voice modulator. And these are examples, and there are such technologies available, there are such developers who are working, and there are such products and apps which are available in that space. 3D modeling is yet another one. Video creation and editing. I think, Sanjhe here has been working on it, but he works more on the human side of it from a filmmaker's perspective. But there's so much of editing that you can do today that you can make day and night, you can create various effects through very, very simple apps that you use today. I could create a cartoon image of myself. I could change my look. I could change my shirt. I could put on glasses and see how, rather than going and buying and trying those glasses, I can pick up glasses and through augmented reality actually check out what they look like on my face. So it just makes the whole paradigm of retail shopping or that experience a lot better. Game development is yet another, that's a totally massive and a different area. Chatbots, we spoke about that, and virtual assistants, image creation and editing, code generation, art creation. You can even create art, it's really funny, but if you want to, there are these apps available where you can take a photo of, say, the trees outside, or some lorikeets, and you can convert it into a Monet, or you can convert it into a different art style of a very famous artist. So these are the kind of things that you can do with generative AI. Specialized computing is 3. Now in specialized computer systems, I think we've been working already with technologies like ATMs, point of sales. So when you go to a point of sales in Myers or David Jones or Woolworths or Target or wherever, Big W, wherever you go, you want information, stock available, etc. All of that is done from that screen, that little screen. But it's not the screen doing the stuff. The screen is just the display, the graphic output. There's processing happening back on the cloud. And that's what specialized computing is all about. ATMs is a very, very classic example. You could be anywhere around the world, and can you imagine through a little card, the ATM can actually detect you and can identify you. So these are things that are important. GPS is one of those things that have probably saved my life when I came into Australia initially, because I didn't know where to go. And I remember as an IT consultant, I'd pick up a call in one of my breakdown services I would do in Wollongong and the other one in the Blue Mountains, and then I'd go to the Southern Shire, and then I'd end up in the Central Coast because I had absolutely no clue. But look how advantageous or how good GPSs are. And you can even plan your trips these days through, and so you can plan your day and say, I'll go there. And you can give approximate times based on what amount of time you would need to resolve an issue. So you become more customer-centric, you become more productive, and it's a better experience for the customer. It's a win-win for everyone. Developer experience. I think developer experience refers to the developers that have an environment. These days, you have gone are the days. I remember I trained many, many years ago in basic COBOL, Fortran, and MS-DOS and the likes of, then moving on to Windows 3.1 and Windows 95, 98, 2000, and all the way till today. I've been a Microsoft specialist for most of my life, and I was very fortunate to pick up a lot of experience over that time. Now, as a developer today, you need to create that developer experience. If, let's say, for example, I have a company and I am creating a solution for the mayor of the Hillshire or the mayor of Hornsby. Now, I need to let my developer express himself. And I think all of the days, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we worked under the philosophy where what I said had to be done. But today, it's about brainstorming, it's about creating an environment where developers can work, again, harmoniously and express themselves. Because at the end of the day, just like Sanjhe is a creative artist, a developer is a creative artist too. He is creating code. And his code can be as smart as you want it to be. So you need to open up those horizons and make sure that you give your developers enough opportunity so that they can also express themselves, because they know of many immersive technologies that can work very smartly. And I'll give you one. This is not because of any of my loyalties or where I stand from any perspective, but there's one gentleman I admire in New South Wales, Victor Dominello. He came up with the Service New South Wales app, and I still remember when he first spoke about it, a lot of people laughed at him, and I really admired him for what he was trying to do. He was able to deploy the Service New South Wales app. It's probably one of the best apps. It could be better, but talking of how local government can work with that, yes, local government can integrate into that network because there's that big data that is available. Now, you've got all over service, all over New South Wales, everybody, all of us, thanks to COVID, are interconnected. And we've got our driver's license on there, we can apply for things through there because it identifies us through technology, through robust technology. And make no mistake, I think there are lots of fears. I speak with seniors, I speak with elders, I speak with people who don't have technology knowledge or who are inept with their skills in technology. But I always tell them, the fear factor of losing or compromise of data in physical form is much more than it is in digital form. And that's something that you need to realize. I know there is compromise of data. It's a big thing because now with everything sitting on the cloud, things your data is sitting there. But the risk is as much, if not more, when it was in physical form. Because guess what? If there was a flood in Riverstone and his office got, went under, all those records would go. How would you retrieve them? How would you get fresh records? Would you have to create those records again? So those are the kind of things. And then storing those records. How much do you multiply it? Redundancy. How do you cater for that? So this is something that's, it's a gray area and people don't understand. What I appreciate, and I think the cost of redundancy or securing your data is something that you must invest in. I do believe that it's very, very important that we focus on the next topic, which is cyber trust and defending reality. So establishing levels of trust on data in cyberspace and authenticating it in a secure environment. I think that's an important thing. So if you're converging, if you're tapping into some information, you need to be able to ensure that there is enough protection, there is trust between those levels, and there is also safety. Technical wellness, this is the last of the points that I speak about. It's a broad term that describes how wellness tools and systems that allow organizations to assess health risk levels of employees and to develop to deliver wellness programming. I think technical wellness could be quite an example. Let us say if I were to walk into Yogesh's store of Domino's in Northmead and do an assessment of the technology, I think it's very, very, just like you go to a doctor for a checkup, it's very, very important that whether you have a home, a residential home, whether you have a business, a small business, a medium business, or a large business, that you work on technical wellness, on technical audit. What I call a needs assessment is where you start from, where you need to understand, just like when you build a home. You call someone to check your building for structural damage, etc. You need to check the technical wellness of that, of the premises or the business or whatever we're talking about, whether it's local government, state government, councils, whatever. Technical wellness audits are important because to understand whether do we need all these lights, why are these lights being used? Why haven't they been replaced with, LED lights? Can you imagine the amount of power these are consuming versus LED lights? So these are the kind of things, it has a domino effect, because if we reduce our outgoings as a council, your rates will go down, or money could be spent on more on parks and schools and other things. So I think from whichever level you look at it, at a micro level, at a residential level, at a business level, you need to ensure that technical wellness is maintained. And this applies across any vertical. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I know I'm the last speaker between you and the provider. Any questions? I'm open to answering anything. Yes, Mr. Pasi.
Oh, you knew my name, eh?
Good afternoon, sir.
My question is on AI. Our Bharat Prime Minister, I saw him speaking in Hindi and being translated into many different languages. My question is on the limitations of that, and also can an ordinary person like me use that technology like anything else normally?
Mr. Pasi, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pasi is a senior, residing in Hornsby, right?
Epping.
In Epping, and a very, very active member of the seniors and the Indian diaspora. Mr. Pasi, to answer your question, you're going to be surprised. Mr. Modi, or the largest democracy, the superpower, and we're all going to clap at that.
Sure.
Mr. Modi, for that speech that he wanted translated in all the languages simultaneously, he wanted to be visible, speaking in those languages. He deployed an Australian company. My friend in Brisbane provided the hologram technology, and he is, in fact, heading over to the US to receive the award for the Tech Award for the year, and Time Magazine has already acknowledged him. That is his technology. So, yes, to answer your question, firstly, that is an Australian innovation.
Limitations.
No, the limitation is zero. The limitation is I can create a hologram of you, and probably you've let the cat out of the bag, but I am working very closely on a project. If it comes to fruition, in the hills, Mayor Ganjani's been talking to me and trying to help me out with that. We're looking for a site. We're going to create the first hologram experience. And out of those experiences would come, you could stand here and I could speak here, and while I'm speaking, the same thing can be presented in 10 different languages. Or I could be visible through, holograms are projected through projectors. So just like that projector, that's how Mr. Modi did it. The projectors were installed in various states and various places, and the projector projected and translated using something called IBM Voice and very high level AI, which is, which is obviously patented by certain companies. But that's what it did. Yes, it can be done, and it will be done more. You will see much more of that.
Because it's very useful for India, because India has so many languages, and you speak in Hindi and translate into any other language.
No, even for citizen, even if you look at citizenship ceremonies here, and we might trial it out with Mayor Ganjani or the Hillshire Mayor during one of the citizenship ceremonies, where it would be simultaneously translated into different, so you could have different, he would be speaking in English and the lip sync would be absolutely, in that language. Like Punjabi which gal kar rahe Punjabi, Gujarati which gal kar rahe Jodi, whatever you want.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Rajiv.
You're welcome, sir.
I'm not son. I'm not son.
Yeah.
I'm your uncle.
Out of respect, I see the 50 Shades of Grey. Incidentally, even I have them, they're just hidden in the back.
See, there is a book by Stephen Hawking,
Yes.
a brief answer to big questions. In that book, there is a chapter on artificial intelligence.
Yes.
He has very said the fact that cautious artificial intelligence will be becoming a monster for us. Like human cloning is banned. There should be bars to what extent the artificial intelligence. It may act as a Frankenstein on us, boomerang on us. What your viewpoint?
No, I've always, I must tell you that about 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, for 5 years, I presented a show called Technology Talk, and I was very fortunate in that to interview people like Mark Zuckerberg in the early days of Facebook and with Sir Richard Branson. And but one of the things that you need to understand is that AR technology will always, you take a building, let's take a physical building. Anyone can come into this building, break into it in the middle of the night and steal stuff, can abuse it, can get drunk here, can cause mayhem and go back. Unfortunately, technology has the same issue or the same level of problems. The advantage with technology is because it's virtual, you don't need 100 policemen to be standing outside that. You just need a secure environment. So a lot of people create and buy technology and say, hey, I've got this iPad, it's amazing, I can do this. But I forget to install something to secure it.
My point is there should be guidelines that you cannot cross this.
I think
See, I'm reading an editorial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it's written by the person or by artificial intelligence.
Yes, and that's something called phishing. You've heard of phishing, where identity was. So there's something called phishing, V-I-S-H-I-N-G, and these days voices are copied. I can actually make a speech with Warren Kirby's voice by recording a few bits of taking a few of his recordings and convert it, and I can lip sync it using technology. Those are the downsides, but cyber laws are coming, and cyber laws will be here. But if you go back historically into the history of mankind, and you go into the evolution, as we evolved, checkpoints came in as we experienced, we had certain experiences, negative or positive. And I think what's happening is now we are growing out of, we are realizing that this technology can become an evil. But let me just tell you this, and let me give you, I can give you hundreds of examples, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's the attack that happened, last Saturday in Bondi Junction. How did the police get alerted? Do you know what happened? Where the basic of technology failed, or the basic technology failed, which is calling up security, because there's only one, there's only one visible security guard. There are not 50 guards. But that's where the power of social media, people putting it on, more and more people got to know about it, and people converged. So there is a positive, and the positives overweigh the negatives.
As you told us that there should be cyber laws in the future.
Yeah, and there are provisions, and governments, whether local, state or federal, they're all working in that space, and that's why the adoption of technology.
This is my intention.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and you have every right to raise. This is a question that every retirement village raises. But we can talk over it offline. I don't want to go too much into Shubha's time. Shubha, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, for this eye-opening session. Talk on AI, where you can see so many materials, and the chatbot, I think it's going to be very, very different world for us. So, we would like to thank you all for coming and really enjoying the session.
I think the talks were very liberating. These were really very good. They are very valuing, and I very much appreciate the initiative of talking about the technology, the way it is evolving. And yes, there will be plus and minuses all the time. But the technology is there to stay, regardless of whatever people think, it is not going to go back. It is just going to keep advancing and be more and more and more into everybody's life. I really thank Adi for putting a session which gave a good introduction of AI.
But it is good for the younger generation, but not for the old, like when we came, we were using the street directory, and we were using our brain, and now we just touch the button and here everything comes.
That's right.
Yes, it makes it easy. But that time was very good too.
Yeah, nowadays, of course, other side is that it's become like this, that you put your destination in the GPS.
That's right, yeah.
And then drive on, and you don't even know what route you are taking, where you are going.
That's right, you don't know.
You reach.
Especially for us, it's very hard, the old generation.
I know.
Ask your grandson.
Thank you. We would like to thank you, Balan, Vichar, Rajiv, and Fred, all sharing their thoughts and giving their time.
Thank you
Now
so
it's time to and mingle and talk to each other. Balan is here, Rajiv is here, so many other people are here. Make new friends and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sanjhe, sabko namaste, Ram Ram ji. Good morning. We are here in Castle Hill Library and having a chat session, snack and chat session
We have got the attendance sheet.
with
Those who are
organized
not
by India
marked
Club.
the attendance, please mark your
Which is
attendance
very,
on the
like,
attendance sheet.
I personally feel that it's very informative because we covered lots of topics like AI, what can impact our daily lives, like the technology impact in our daily lives. And also we had our Member of Parliament from Livingston, Mr. Warren Kirby, and thankful to him to come all the way from there, Livingston, to attend this function. Thank you very much. And Mr. Peter, Mayor of Hillshire Council, thanks to him as well. He's always very supportive to Indian community. And thanks to the people who have come and attend this event, and also thanks to Sanjhe Vichar channel, Mr. Harry, who always come and support us. Thank you very much.
And simultaneously, we have a birth rate below 2. So, in order to maintain continual growth, you need a population. And if you're not getting that locally, you have to import. So, until we reach a point in history where we're prepared to either A, accept or B, entirely infrastructure of way up the problem we have with that though, in Australia particularly, we're on Lake Vichar.
Yes, please, help it.
We don't have the water resources. Simple as that. We just don't have it. So until we're able to work out the system have a dialogue, it's got nothing to do with answers.
Rajiv has said about the light. So many humans are not required. And if we have some research, we can really save on cost of energy, and which is
आपने कुछ
happening
खाया कि
in
नहीं?
because of temperature of the globe is increasing. Cost of energy is going to be hitting everywhere. And so much light is not required, so many humans are not required. It can be reduced, power consumption can be reduced. That's what I want to add. Thank you very much.
It's not sustainable. Not sustainable for the planet, because you have resources to consume. In Australia, while there's plenty more land left, you have to fully appreciate that 90%, fully 90% of our country